Thank you, Lizette, for that wonderful introduction. Lisa, for the invitation. Padmini was to speak today, not me. But she's in India, and she could not get a visa. So for us who are here, we had the privilege to travel. She didn't have that privilege, and it's very unfortunate for her. But I do want to talk about her because I think I committed to Lisa, talk about uncomfortable things, because it's important as a woman in India is much more challenging than other parts of the world. Padmini is our marketing director. She's been with us for 3 years, and she is the only woman in this entire Kandala zone that runs a factory. Our finance director is a woman, and our remanufacturing is a woman, and that's totally unusual in an India environment of men. She's dedicated, she's committed, she's resilient, and I wish she could have met her. She's empowered, and she's a great teacher because she empowers all of her team members to be the best they can and to teach them how to deal with difficult situations as a woman in the industry. The women there and the men have a safe environment for the 8 hours that they're there, and that's not always possible in India. We have many committees. We have a grievance committee, we have a workers committee, we have a POSH committee. I wonder what POSH is. If you have more than 10 employees in India, you have to have a POSH committee which deals with sexual harassment. That's how much there is. You need a POSH committee to do that. We have an external advocate who can come into our factory any day of the week and speak to any staff at any time of the day. We have a human rights policy that the staff are taught what their legal rights are, obviously health and safety. But for the factory that we have to deal with brands, we also had to qualify under SMETA. So we rented this government building, and you would think, gee, this government building has to fit into all of the qualifications for construction. But no, the staircase didn't fit code. The doors were backwards. I mean, just the list of everything. I'm like going, I'm starting from scratch here. And it's very difficult to qualify. Took us a year plus. But if you don't qualify under these programs and you want to work with brands, which is what we wanted to do because our thought was, right or wrong, by the way, is that if we could do recycling in volumes that the brands can do because they're $5 billion or $10 billion or $50 billion companies, we would actually move the reuse and recycling at an incredible pace. Right now, I feel that in the world there's a little bit of a hostile environment for women as human rights are being questioned, nationalities are being questioned. It's important as leaders that we ensure that our women are safe in our factories and that they have the ability to grow. Because if you want your children, your daughters, to have meaningful jobs, leadership positions in the next decades, you've got to be doing something with women in the factories, in the offices, in every profession. We need to do something with the women today in order to provide opportunities for our children tomorrow. And I feel that India is about, 40 years behind, where I was as a young woman in Canada coming up in positions of leadership. And I'll tell you a couple of stories because I think, they may be awkward to listen to, but I think they're important because if we don't talk about them, then they're never going to go away. Because the sexual abuse in India is 1 in 3, and that is only what is actually being, where the women are actually complaining, and all the other ones you don't even know. 1 in 5 in the US, 1 to 3 to 5 in Central America. It's a real problem. And I'll give you a couple stories because the women that work for you and they have leadership positions, these are some of the things I hope they never have to do. But if they do, We need to train the women on how to handle these situations. So, for instance, I was a young senior accountant, and the marketing director says, Helen, let's have lunch. Okay, oh, what a great opportunity. I go to lunch, it was the longest hour of my life. Sits across the table and says, my wife left me, I have 6 kids, I have a nanny, it's not really working. I think you should be the mother of my children. I was married. How do you get out of that situation and still be able to deal with that person the next day when there's a marketing question at the table or whatever? The CFO of another company called me and said, by the way, Helen, I make great babies. What do I care? Padmini needs to go and get a license in a totally men environment. Everyone in that zone that has a leadership control role is a man. She comes there with 3 strikes. 1, she's a woman. 2, we don't pay any bribes. And 3, she's not going to give any favors. But she's got to walk out of there with a license. And she's got to walk out of there with this guy still wanting to deal with her at the end of the very long conversation of sitting behind the desk, going to the sofa and saying, let's talk, having him come back to the desk and knowing full well that he's going to deal with Padmini for the next whatever number of years. She had to handle that situation very, very carefully. And this is some of the challenges that women have. And I'm not saying that any of the women in this room have had those challenges. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that your company is run like that, but I am saying that these are the challenges that women face generally. All right, let's talk about Bank Vogue. Okay, Bank Vogue innovation. This is an old slide, but I wanted it here because, the Protection Agency in the US says 9.5 million metric tons of apparel and textiles end up in landfills. Well, last year it was 11.5 metric tons. 8% of it, of the landfill, was textile. It was estimated that cotton cultivation accounted for 11% of the world's pesticides consumption in 2013. In 2024, it was 6%, so that's pretty good, but 16% was insecticides. It was estimated when we did this that in 2025, we would have 100 million tons of product, exceed 100 million tons. Well, I hate to tell you, but we're pretty close. We're at 92 million tons of product produced in 2024. That is 100 billion garments, 12.5 pieces of clothing for every single person on this earth. One thing is for sure, death and taxes. We know that. The other thing is for sure is you're not going to create 100 billion garments and then think they're not going to land somewhere in a landfill in some country. Our consumption is crazy. It's totally crazy. So the government's to think, oh, I'm not going to have anything in landfill. Wow. How are you going to do that? There's no technology to get us there today. Absolutely none. Okay, 25 years we've been in business. The group of companies, we have 4 silos. Wholesale, where we buy and sell containers of clothing, very similar to Garson and Shaw. Friendly competitors. Retail, and the purpose of us doing the retail, which is a business to consumer, is to create an environment where used was part of the fashion landscape of new. So we got into magazines because we worked with a ton of stylists who could take used garments and style them with new garments, and it looked great. And we had a lot of wonderful press for the last 25 years in the UK and in Europe, lots of Vogue magazines. We're not there yet. Used is still difficult to get that average consumer to come and buy. The youth buy, before university, at university they buy, but after that, it's really difficult to get that consumer to buy in to used, and the purpose of our retail business was try to do that. The component manufacturing is a new beginning, and it is truly circular, because we will take a pair of jeans and we will cut them into pieces and we will make a new bag. This is a Coach bag. This is all used denim. This has got a brand new life. It starts all over the cycle. This is truly circular. Then we do fiber to fiber. So we were the first ones to supply renewal cell in post-consumer textile, and they also had pre-consumer textile. But sometimes when you're the first one at the gate, you don't make it. And they didn't, so they went bankrupt. And someone else has bought them, and now they're trying to sell that product. The problem? The consumer talks a lot about circularity. They really want to be sustainable, but they don't put their money in the same place as their talk. And if you don't do that, the brands won't do anything. Why would they change? If the consumer isn't going to care whether they spend that extra dollar for that product, then why would they care? So they didn't buy. They had a, when we started, they had a huge customer that said, I'm going to buy this product from you, Renewal Cell, but then they didn't buy it because it was more expensive, and the consumer interest was just not there to make a difference for them to make that change. And brands don't change easily. We vote with our dollars. If we want circularity, we have to vote with it. We have to spend on it. It's our job. I'm kind of preaching to the converted. I know, I'm sorry about that. Okay. This should be a room of people who have nothing to do with this industry, but it's a lot more fun to talk to you guys. Carbon reduction, the idea was to try to save carbon emissions by not using virgin material. We wanted to help communities, and we have a commitment to the value of post-consumer garments through circular solutions. This is the hierarchy. It's not a great chart, but consumer buy, you all know this. Consumer buys, donates, it goes to a charity or goes to a for-profit retailer, the product is purchased, resell, what's wearable. There's all of the things that everybody said today in all of their conversations. I don't need to kind of repeat that. All of these things you already know. So, problem. 3 out of 5 garments don't even make it anywhere but directly to incineration. Between 5 and 20% of the garments that brands produce don't sell, and they incinerate them. Or if they have a high content of cotton, they'll have them use mechanical recycling to break them down and potentially use that cotton. And in some cases, I've talked to people at conferences where they actually take it, they produce a cotton, and then they burn it because the brand doesn't want the opportunity for anyone to take something out of, oh, I'm not going to burn this, I'm going to wear this. So they mechanically process it instead. If we want to have a truly circular economy, and we want to have the volumes that we want to produce to have a true circular economy, we're not going to be able to do it without everybody in this room, because not one of us produces enough to do great volumes, but together we can produce great volumes. Circular services, mechanical and chemical recycling, which we've provided product, components for manufacturing, circular design, upcycling at scale we've done, and brand solutions for dead stock. The fastest route to carbon neutrality is using textiles that are already on this planet. Component manufacturing process involves a meticulous set of steps to ensure the highest quality materials, zero waste, best-in-class consistency, and in compliance with health and safety, and RSL protocol followed at scale. So stage 1 is identifying the material and following the brand specifications. We sanitize the product and we RSL test it. The RSL is somewhere between 200 to 500 per piece. No 2 pieces are the same, so you say, why do you bother? I mean, if you have a bale of denim and you're gonna test, I don't know, 1,000 of the 10,000 pieces that are in there, why bother? They're all different. But for brands, their brand identity is very important to them, And so they want to test. They want to show that they've tested certain materials and they generally pass. Stage 2, brand development. They create a pattern, a design, a pattern. We cut the pieces. For instance, like that bag, or this coat, or this shoe. And then stage 3 is the QC. And QC is very important because, you can't have a stain, you can't have a hole. Every piece has got to be consistent within the range that they've asked us to do. It takes time to do that. The product is then sent to their factories that they choose because they have an aesthetic that they've built throughout their brand existence. And they want to maintain that. And they don't want to start with a new manufacturing facility to say, make this for me exactly like this. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to take 5 tries, and you're going to do that many, many times before the factory gets it right. So we deal with their factories. They work on an 18-month cycle. If they put something out in 12 months, that's pretty good, and they expect to give you the order and then for you to deliver the month after. It's not easy. You need a toolkit so that you can show them consistent range of textile from an inconsistent supply. You need to demonstrate that you have the full potential to supply them the post-consumer textiles. And you need the capability and expertise to sort by category. You have to know the fabrics, you have to know the textiles, you have to know the weight, you have to know the colors. There's a lot you need to know. If you're gonna supply a Ditsy floral, if they're gonna go design something on a Dixie Flora, they're gonna call the suppliers who are gonna supply them 10,000 feet of the same design, and they're gonna make that, and they're gonna RSL test that in 3 different places. You're gonna supply them Ditsy Floral. Oh, where do you start? Where do you start? What background is it? What size is it? Which ones do you want? Which ones do you don't want? And then you have to supply them. But I think we can do it. I think we can do it at scale. We've done it in numbers. And I think it's important for us to be able to do that in order to get the consumer to really think about buying something that comes from used. These are some of the products that Coach has put out. They have them in their stores. This is J-Lo for Jennifer Lopez. But I think the most important thing that Coach has done is they've done an LCA. So they hired 2 engineering firms to take the denim that was used to produce this bag versus a new bag. 2 engineering firms to do everything from, okay, I'm starting from raw material, I'm growing the cotton, I'm delivering it, I'm making a textile, I'm delivering the textile, I'm making the bag, all the way to the delivery to the consumer. And then they hired another engineering firm to make sure that those 2 engineering firms didn't make a mistake. And the result is 80% lower greenhouse gas by using used and 95% less water. So this is something that if you're wanting to do anything in the reuse and recycling, these are numbers that you can use, and they're important numbers. This is other products that we've made for Coach Utopia. This is Wrangler, just showing what can be made with used. This is Converse, so we've done a lot of shoes with Converse. We made product for YMC and Sea Salt, a Canadian and a British brand. We've worked with outfitters, Urban Outfitters, Simons. There are other products that we've created. Beyond Remade, we created that particular brand specifically to show companies what can be made with used and that it can really be sold to the consumer who maybe doesn't want to wear used, but to show them what the possibilities are. And that jacket got us that purse. Just using bags like Lisa has done at this conference is a great use. It's amazing. I use these denim bags at home. I mean, I never have enough of them. I do groceries. I put stuff in them to haul them from one place to the other. Fantastic. It's a great use. And why are we doing plastic bags? It's interesting. The legislators are trying to put out policies for our industry, and they don't know anything about it, which is really unfortunate. But in our industry, we have solutions. We actually have a reuse program in many places. Megapaka, Humana, I'm sure there's lots of other people here who reuse, recycle. Talk to your legislator, talk to your state MPs, whatever they're called, and let them know that if you're going to fix so that used becomes part of new, then they should encourage fiber. But they should encourage fiber, where the used product is, not where there's none, which is a lot of them. When we talk to them, we say, where are you going to put your plant? And I'm going, oh my God. You're going to have to truck everything to where you're going to put your factory. Why would you do that? Why don't we say, look, if you're going to make a shirt, 20% of it, or 50 to whatever technology we can actually handle, has to be used. There'll be an automatic demand.